eating these other.
Yeah. Do Western gulls breed on those buildings with the
Do you see that big
Spearman?
tower? Like I have Sauron.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, just up there. There's like scattered nests, but they're not.
It seemed like they were kind of flirting with each other a little bit.
It's really funny because when we do drone surveys, the Hiermans and Californians don't care at all. They're just chill. But the Western gulls will like spot it from a mile away and like dive bomb it. And,
It's always the big one.
Yeah, not happy at all. So it's been fun. We've got like trying to build a lot of events in this year. We've got like, some interns doing like drone work.
Yeah.
Like I said, the camera on a stick, and that's working pretty well. So yeah,
it's cool. Wild, man. Like we'll talk more about this as everything goes, but we're working with the state and we're starting to talk about the idea of like redoing the species of special concern. And it was last done 20 years ago. And they're for the
the list. Okay.
Yeah. And the criteria that they established for like what would be on that list, Humansville would absolutely be on there, but it wasn't included in that like last. Yeah, exactly. Same with like Coco Spoopy.
Oh yeah. Wow. Wait. So that's how many?
It's over 20 years ago. They're on a rock off of Santa Barbara Island, but there's like 150 pairs, breeding pairs. Yeah, that are breeding like in December, and like one red-footed pair, maybe one blue-footed booby still hanging out there, and then that's all new. At one point, a blue-footed bred with a Cocos, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like 50 years ago. Wow.
Just the next 5 years, it's going to be insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's in the world?
Are there any of us ready?
I'm so glad you all found us. And when Bram starts talking, he has a microphone on. I just didn't want to steal it off his lapel for right now. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. If I haven't met you yet, I think there's some newer faces in the group tonight. I'm Shannon Simpson, Executive Director of Monterey Audubon Society. We're your local bird conservation group. I like to start every lecture out with inviting everybody to join us as a member. If you have not already joined us, we have our donation envelopes in the back. We got online. We also tonight have our whole swag table set up. So we've got John Roberson's book, the Monterey Birds book. We have our Yeti tumblers. I don't think anybody's looking back there at you, Amanda.
I was looking.
New beanies. Those are very new swag sets. We haven't had those very long. Also, afterwards, we're happy to invite you to join us for some refreshments in the side room over here. If you need to get up in the middle and take yourself a refreshment, you can do that as well. They're allowed in the room here. Restrooms are through the dive lockers in this way. If you need to do that during the lecture. And I think other than that, we're about ready to get started. Tonight we have Pierszalowski, who's the Executive Director of the California Breeding Bird Atlas. And I just wanted to share with you all that we just finished our strategic planning process. It is going to be published later this month for everybody to see what's in our strategic plan. But one of our goals in that strategic plan is that Monterey Audubon supporters contribute heavily to the Breeding Bird Atlas. So thank you all for being here and getting us started with that. And we should have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. So save them up and Van will do his best to answer everything for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Shannon. How is the microphone working? Not at all working? Should I push a button?
Thank you for bearing with us through some figuring things out tonight. This is our first night here for our lecture.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. No? We can just do old-fashioned podium. Ho, ho, ho. The big boy. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. What's up? This feels better anyway. It's analog, whatever that means. Thank you so much for having me here. Thanks for coming out. What a beautiful building, beautiful area. Just to give you a quick rundown on the presentation, and I want to leave a lot of time at the end for discussion, questions and answers. We're in year one of a 5-year field effort, and there's a lot of we always get a lot of great questions, so I want to save a lot of time for that. Of course, I chose this image, the Heerman's Gull. As Don originally published, this is one of the most fascinating and incredible kind of things that has happened in the state in a long time in terms of a new breeding population. And we're looking forward to elevating that through this project. Let's see, so give you an idea what we'll do, little intro. I'll talk about CBA, the organization, talk a little bit about the eBird Atlas, then the timeline, Atlas status, how to get involved, and then Q&A. Intro, that's me. That's a black-necked stilt. That is my spark bird. How could it not be, is what I would say. It has friggin' pink legs and is insane looking. And it is in the LA River where I live. And before I was a birder, I lived in LA for a long time. And I lived within 2 miles from the LA River and had never seen a black-necked stilt. And then you start looking at the birds, and once you start looking, it's insane what you see. And I was like, are you fucking serious? That's a real bird? And there's like hundreds of them for me to watch at any time? It's insane. I was raised in Cambria. Who knows what Cambria and Monterey have in common? Monterey pine. That's kind of, being here reminds me of being home. I think the Monterey pine forests in California and on the islands in Mexico, one of the most just incredible ecosystems we have. I think we have a lot to learn about them as well. A lot of the birds, can breed pretty high up there. It's pretty hard to find a pygmy nuthatch nest. But yeah, I'm really excited to do that. Just a quick background on me. Yeah, born and raised in Cambria, but I had a seasonal migratory life growing up. My Aunt Susan, who's here, can attest to that. My family would spend 8 months of the year in Cambria and then 4 months of the year in Alaska. My dad was a commercial salmon fisherman on Kodiak Island. And so our whole family would go up every summer. And I started working on his boat when I was old enough, or maybe a little before I was old enough, if we're being honest. So yeah, but despite being a fundamentalist Californian, that's my religion, I had never seen a California summer until I was like 22 or something like that, because I was always in Alaska. Then I was into music. I spent most of my professional life in the music industry before pivoting to public policy in 2018. And then obsessively falling in love with birds and found myself unable to do anything else and became terrible at my job, and then left the job, and then from there figured out what the hell I was going to do. But before that, existential crisis comes early in the form of a California big year, which I did in 2023. Just as an excuse to show some pictures of birds. I thought I'd highlight this. And this is kind of where the origin of this project kind of came to be. I knew that like, it's kind of silly and kind of stupid, but also it is what it is. There's competitive nature of birding. And I knew there was like a record of 500. And I was like, oh, you know, I need purpose in my life. I'm going to try to beat the record. And, you know, I saw amazing things as king eider in Ventura, yellow-billed loon in San Diego. I'm sure a lot of you saw the snow bunting in San Mateo, Perluxia, which is the #1 best bird name. Thick-billed kingbird, you know, just insane birds. Wood sandpiper, give me a break. Although, come on, it's pretty much a lesser yellow lux if you squint. Crested caracal, red-headed woodpecker. What the hell? In like a oak pine thing in San Francisco. Swallowtailed gull. I was going up and down. You can imagine the miles I was putting on my Prius and on boats. Went out and saw Morris. Insane, it's still alive. Everyone remembers the wedge rump, storm petrel invasion, the frigate birds, just insane like these birds that aren't usually in California, you know, like great shearwater. What the heck is going on? LeConte sparrow up and down the coast, 100,000 miles on the Prius. Girlfriend is barely hanging on. But what do we mean when we say rare birds? Like I'd explain to my music friends who are not birders, and I'd be like, yeah, I go around and I look for rare birds. Like, what the hell does that mean? What does it mean? And usually what we mean is vagrancy, usually. And vagrancy is a bird that, you know, is occurring outside its normal geographic range, due to navigation errors, weather, dispersal. It's extremely interesting and extremely fun for birding, but it kind of has extremely limited conservation value. CDFW is not going to change their land management practices because every 3 years a blackpoll warbler is going to show up in a teepoo tree by the mall. And so during these long drives, there's a lot of thinking like, why am I doing this? I'm going up and down. I'm trying to beat some record. Like, what? This isn't why I got into birds, you know? I got into birds because I love birds and I want to help birds. And then Kimball Garrett and Lance down in LA reached out to me and said, Van, do you want to take over running the 2nd LA County Breeding Bird Atlas? Yes. Then I Googled, what is a breeding bird atlas? And a breeding bird atlas, you know, it's a multi-year effort to document the breeding, distribution, and timing of every bird species within a defined region, providing a time-bound snapshot of where and how birds reproduce across the landscape. And hearing that, I immediately knew that this type of project would have a lot more conservation value than the type of birding that I had been kind of addicted to in a way before. But after saying yes to the LA County 2, I had a couple questions. And so, yeah, those are the basic ideas. Like how many, I know some states have done a statewide breeding bird atlas. How many? 44? 19 of them more than one? Hard to find a map these days where California is the same color as Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. Just let that sink in. And the reason is when breeding bird atlases came, you know, they were originally invented in Europe and England. Over there, they primarily did them by the country ended up doing them at a continental scale and smaller scales. When breeding bird atlases got to California, birders very understandably came to the conclusion that the state was too big to do it all at once. This is before eBird, before smartphones. So how many counties have published breeding bird atlases? There's 58 counties in California, 15 have published. And this is the part of the presentation that I want to acknowledge the incredible work that Don Roberson did in Monterey County. The Monterey County Breeding Bird Atlas is one of the best examples we have. It is a phenomenal piece of work. I own 2 copies, I don't know why. And I look at it all the time, and I think that it's an example of how valuable these things can be. But as you look at this map, I don't know if you'll notice a slight bias towards where people live. I think I see it with, you know, God bless Nevada County, the one outlier there. But it makes sense, right? Breeding bird atlases take a lot of money, a lot of coordinated effort. They take a lot of public outreach, a lot of education. It's a lot of work. It's 5 years of field work. And then you have to, after that, you have to analyze the data. You have to write a book. You have to do all this stuff. Going to be hard to do that in Tehama County, right? Going to be hard to do that in Butte County. So that got me thinking. But then I was like, well, maybe this is outdated. Maybe we don't need these atlases anymore. Maybe with eBird, we have enough data. We don't even need to do them. So I got with Morgan Tingley, professor at UCLA. We downloaded all eBird data for all years. We looked at March through August, and we're kind of shocked to see this map. So we subdivided the state into atlas blocks, which are about 3 by 3 miles. If you see red, that means that throughout all years, there has not been a single minute of eBird effort anywhere within that 3 by 3 mile block. Pretty good chunk of the state. That's just effort. Then we looked at, what about probable and confirmed breeding codes? The map on the left is the one you just saw. The map on the right is kind of frightening. So that red equals 0 checklists with a single probable or confirmed breeding observation ever, March through August. That is over half the state. And so while 44 of 50 states have statewide breeding bird atlases that are one of the absolutely essential core conservation planning documents that the state wildlife agencies use to inform strategic land acquisition, habitat management, California doesn't have that. And that was troubling to find out. Okay, but it was impossible. Is it still impossible? Has anything changed since the 70s and 80s? Yes, is the answer. Many things. There's 2 kind of core reasons why a statewide atlas in California is now possible. Number 1 is the rapid, unprecedented growth in birding. Really started during COVID. The growth, the rate of expansion has not slowed since. And we're seeing, especially among younger people, more diverse individuals as well, it's honestly breathtaking and kind of taking everyone at the state by surprise. Like, what is happening? It's like Pokemon Go, but for nature. It's like young people are out there doing this. So like, number 1 reason, thousands more birders than there were back then. That's a big help. The second reason is eBird. if you're not familiar, eBird is a app and a website developed by Cornell, and a lot of birders, most birders who are active, use it to document their observations in the field. It's in their phone, it records your track. You can really quickly input whatever you see and the breeding code. Without it, this is what you were looking at. And Don probably had something similar. This is from Riverside County, which conducted a breeding bird atlas, but never published it. This is just the front of a card that you would get every season. And you'd have to not lose it, number one. And that's the back of it. And then you'd have to mail it with 2 stamps, double stamp, to a P.O. box and hope that it got onto some floppy disk and turned into a book. And that's all the more reason why I come back to folks like Don who were able to do this. There were a lot of other counties that started and tried and never quite got across the finish line. And Don was able to in Monterey. And we're so grateful to have that baseline data. So anyway, at this point, after all that, after talking to folks at Audubon, California, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, California State Parks, Point Blue, Nature Conservancy, I went to them and I was like, am I missing something? Like, should I do this? And all of them were like, yes, finally, please do this. And so I founded a new nonprofit organization, California Bird Atlas. It's an independent 501c3. We have our core team. We have a science advisory committee that has, chaired by Morgan Tingley at UCLA, president-elect of American Ornithological Society. It also has Phil Unit, the author of San Diego County Bird Atlas. Natalia Ocampo-Pinuela at UC Santa Cruz, lots of great folks. We have regional coordinators, our board, atlasers. Just to give you a sense, this is like, I think it's grown, we have like 12 more. These are all founding partners that have contributed significantly. And I just really want to thank Monterey Audubon for being one of the first to come on board. And without the support, give it up. Without their support, we wouldn't have been able to do this. Just to give you a sense of some of the regional coordinators, we're still adding to this. These are just people who have volunteered to help. It's a big state, and so we're going to need a lot of support. We have a few folks from Monterey, Paul Fenwick, Kai Russell, Karen Krieger. We'd love to have more as well. And all of this is run through what is called an eBird Atlas project. And so this was one of the initial big costs. And when I started talking to Cornell, I asked them, hey, how much would it cost to do this, to have this platform, and it's integrated with the app, and you can do all this cool stuff, and you don't have to do those paper sheets, and you don't have to do anything else. It's all built in. And they said, the whole data build is $110,000 for LA County. And I said, oh, interesting, okay. Just out of curiosity, how much would it be for the state of California? And they said, $110,000. And I said, I'll pick that one. So just to give you a sense of the timeline, and I'm very happy to say that we were able to raise enough money not only to fund the eBird project, but also a full-time postdoc at UCLA, starting costs, and we officially launched California's first statewide breeding bird atlas on January 1st of this year. And so we will not be the same color as Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, I think I got this right, for much longer. We are in the fieldwork phase. So that's starting now until the end of 2030. It's 5 years intentionally for a reason. If it was 1 year, you might get a weird outlier year of a bunch of robins or a bunch of whatever. 5 years is long enough to smooth out some of that variation, but it's still a snapshot in time. that you then can compare past and future things to. So you first have to subdivide the region. In this case, the region is California, into what are called atlas blocks. And on eBird, there's one way to do that, and that is based on USGS topo maps, 7.5-minute maps. And so these were designed in the late 1800s. They all have names, and each of them is subdivided into 6, and each one of those is an atlas block. And when you look at that at a state level, it's terrifying. I mean, on a screen this big, I guess I can see the individual. We got every little rock. Over 16,000 blocks. And each block is 3 by 3 miles, over 4,000 football fields in each block. And we'll get a little bit more later into, you know, what the coverage actually is, but just to give you a sense, that's what the blocks look like. The most important part about a breeding bird atlas is documenting the breeding behavior. So on eBird, many of you will be familiar with this screen. There's these color-coded letters, and they go from light-colored to dark-colored. And the F is not even a breeding code, it just means flyover. So it's like if you're in the forest and you see a ring-billed gull flying over the forest, doesn't really mean that it has anything to do with the forest, it's just flying over. These are possible codes, and then probable codes, and then confirmed codes. And they go in order of how kind of confirmedness they are. So that makes sense why at the top, nest with young. You can't get any more confirmed than a nest with young. Nest with eggs, well, they're not quite young yet. Carrying fecal sac is disgusting, but also awesome. Feeding young, you know, the young might be slightly away from the nest, recently fledged them, but all of those are confirmed codes. And so when people go out and go birding, they are encouraged, or in this case mandated, to record all of these unless they tell us they didn't. The other idea is that, you know, you repeat these over time. This is a page from the Catalan region in Europe. They've done it 3 times. And so they've, you know, really have a great understanding of change over time for all species. California doesn't have a statewide breeding bird atlas to compare to, but we have a lot of great data, including the Monterey County Breeding Bird Atlas, the other county atlases, all eBird data, iNaturalist data, data from agencies, data from NGOs. And so we're working with our science team to collect all of this historical data and create species models for every species so that we can immediately, you know, use the findings from this new 5-year field program to look at change over time without waiting 20 years to do it again. And an important thing to stress here, this is getting a little in the weeds, but breeding season occupancy does not equal breeding, right? Just because you saw a golden eagle during the spring doesn't mean it's breeding there for reasons that you could guess, right? Habitat segregation, suboptimal habitat, could be floaters, immature birds, prospecting. And so recording this behavioral data is incredibly important. This is shown in the study by USGS. On the map on the left shows where, this is a section up in the bay. The map on the left, or the figure on the left, shows where golden eagles were detected. And then the one on the right, what's going on here? No breeding. So if you only had the map on the left, you'd kind of, I don't know, you wouldn't really know what was going on with breeding. You might have a guess. If you look at the top right, this is eBird status and trends. Kind of looks a lot more like the one on the left, whereas in reality, It's very clear they're not breeding at all in that section. And so this is the type of analysis that are powered by breeding bird atlases. And also, modeled ranges are not actual documentation. We can create these models and kind of like use statistics to model where we think birds are, but in the court of law, that's not evidence. You need documented observations in order to actually have something to stand on. And the last thing I'll say in the weeds section before we move on to just how things have been going so far. This is a paper, Morgan, the chair of our science advisory committee, was the PI on this. And it showed that, we know that a lot of birds are changing their range based on climate change, right? Neotropic cormorant is expanding northward, right? There's a lot of the Heermann's gull thing. Who knows what that's about? There's a lot of talk about the expansion. However, 2/3 or so of the biological response to climate change among birds is not change in distribution. It's actually a change in the timing of when they're breeding. And most are breeding earlier. Not all, but most. And oak titmouse is a great example. On average, just over the last 30 years, it's breeding 12 days earlier, which from a Migratory Bird Treaty Act perspective, federal law, that prohibits the take of any native, active nest, pretty important to know when active nests are happening. And so we need this paper is great, but it's like at a very continental level. There is currently no data set at all that does this at the state level. And California Department of Fish and Wildlife they're not going to do much about a continental study. They need something at the state. So that's why we're partnering with them to make sure this has the impact that it deserves. Atlas status, which is just fun to say. Our postdoc came up with it. So to join the project, you gotta have a Cornell, eBird account, okay? You gotta go to ebird.org/Atlas California, is on the flyer. You have to join the project. And then on the app or mobile, you have to select the project. So there's a lot of things you have to do. And we were hoping by the end of March, what is it now, April something or other? We were hoping by the end of March to have 15,000 Atlas checklists. As of today, we're at 74,017 checklists. This thing is as much as a scientific public research project can go, it's gone viral. Our stretch goal for the end of March was 1,000 contributors. It took New York State, who just did theirs through eBird, their third statewide atlas. It took them 3 years to reach 3,000. Our stretch goal for the end of March was 1,000. As of today, we're at 3,304. In 3 months, it took New York 3 years. That's spread across over 5,000 atlas blocks, with all 58 counties having data. So we are off to a fantastic start. And the slide that gets me the most excited is the next one. On eBird, before an atlas, you can enter breeding codes. That's an option. But there's not a ton of public education about it. It's not really front and center. A lot of people, don't know what the codes are. One of our first missions was just, we need to get more people using the breeding codes and have a very robust quality control system on the back end. So now we have 3 months under our belt. Have the number of breeding code observations gone up? Oh my God! Dear Lord, that is insane. 558%. Things were pretty steady 2021 through 2025, and then this massive jump. However, we got a long road to go. It's a big state, as you can imagine. These aren't all spread out. They're kind of clustered. Here's what the coverage map looks like right now. This just shows if there's been a checklist. Obviously, you can go on to the effort map online, which is updated daily and available for the public to see. But there's, big areas where we will need more coverage. Yet the Sierra is still kind of covered in snow, so that makes sense. But the Mojave, it's going to be an issue. Modoc Plateau, going to be an issue. Klamath Mountains, west side of the San Joaquin Valley, the High Sierra, Tulare Basin. We are going to need a lot of money to pay people eventually to cover these areas. New York State's Breeding Bird Atlas, their budget was around $2.7 million. Our budget for the 9 years is $6.5 million. A lot of that will be going to paying people once we get state funding to go bird in a lot of these areas where we can, we will be able to redistribute a lot of volunteer effort, which we're already seeing, but we're not going to be able to do all of it that way. But this is just wackadoodle. I can't imagine. Just really, it's insane. We've been so stunned, our whole team, at the level of engagement and the quality. There's definitely some issues that come up, and a lot of education going on. One of the codes, for example, is carrying food. So we had in January, we had a lot of ospreys carrying food. But an osprey carries food for other reasons. And so, we reach out and we have a conversation with the atlaser and kind of, make sure that they understand that. And just those interactions have been so great and positive. And people are just really excited to learn. It's one awesome thing about birders. It's like, they really want to learn because the stuff is fascinating. Like black oyster catchers, y'all know more than I do. This pebble thing, what the hell? For those who don't know, the males, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my understanding, will go around, look for what they deem to be an attractive pebble, wait for the female to kind of be watching, and then toss the pebble, and the female will kind of judge both the quality of the pebble, whatever that means, and the quality of the toss. That's insane. And there's so many things like that for all these species that I'm still learning. And the more you learn about birds, the more grateful you are that we live in a world that they exist. Can you imagine? Only a couple of things would have happened differently and there'd be no birds. And birds are always flying and singing. Can you imagine a world without that? It would suck. So anyway, ways to get involved. Number one, join the project. If you haven't already, take a picture of that slide. We have flyers in the back. If you go to this website, you'll be able to, once you're here, these buttons at the top that you usually see on normal eBird, they lead you to different things once you're here. And I've already joined, but you'd have an option here to join the project. And then once you join, you might have to force quit your app and then it'll refresh. And then when you do that, you'll actually be able to see in the eBird app where you are in the block. And so you'll know if you're like close to the edge of a block or not. And we have tons of resources online in the About section to get you started, including a quick start guide. Other ways to get involved, obviously, we're a new nonprofit, and so are extremely grateful for any donations. We have a donate button on our website. Every time I get an email that says we get a new donation, I give a little woo to myself. So just so you know. And in the spirit of wanting to have some time for discussion, that's it. Also write me if you have any questions. This email goes to me and our science director. And all this is on the flyer in the background, or in the background back there. And thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. And now Q&A. And once we do Q&A, I'll get back to that Heerman's Goal picture because it's so cool. Because Heerman's Goal are the best goal, right? Like, I would like to, I'm curious if anyone disagrees, we could have a conversation outside. But like, what is, I mean, man, swallowtail goal's pretty cool. But in terms of our breeding goals, nothing comes close. So yeah, any questions? We usually have, there's always questions. Yeah.
Data that is preliminary versus 5 years. Do you post anything that is like 1 year, 2 year, any interim data? No?
Oh yeah. So so the question is, are we going to be able to publish sort of interim data in the meantime before the project is done? And that's one of the great things about the eBird project portal. So once you're there at ebird.org/Atlas California, you can go to the effort map, and that is updated daily. And so you'll be able to see in real time, and you can zoom in on the blocks, and you can click a block, and it'll tell you exactly how many hours of diurnal effort have been in that block. You can click the name of the block. It'll give you a list of all the species that have been confirmed so far, probable in that block. You can toggle that to nocturnal effort. And then you can also look up by species, and the species maps are also updated daily. And they'll show out a statewide grid, where the birds have been confirmed, breeding, probable, and possible. So, and all of that is free to the public and updated daily. Yeah.
How is that connected with habitat restoration or just sustaining the habitat for all these birds?
Yeah, great question. So
this is important for that. Otherwise, we could have acres of pavement just
Yeah, so the question was asking about, how this project kind of intersects with, vegetation and also other habitat things and how it will help conservation. So we are working with CDFW and other partners. California does not have a breeding bird atlas, but it does have the best vegetation map in the world. VegCamp is an incredible, basically map layer. And so we are able to take our data on the state, as if you can imagine at the end of 5 years, millions of observations, and overlay the VegCamp map that is also updated regularly and adapts to fire and changes like that. And we'll be able to see, for example, as an example, based on the definitions of what classifies as a species of special concern and is thus tracked in CDFW's California Natural Diversity Database, that book, Species of Special Concern, hasn't been updated in 20 or 25 years. And if that were to be updated, Heerman's Gull has to be on it, as one example. There's a lot of other examples as well. So that is one thing, like refreshing this list. Are we sure that these are the right species that we need to be looking after? Are there other species or subspecies that we need to look after. And also there's, you know, if you think about the Mojave, you saw the just complete absence of data there. There's a ton of like just the Wild West, solar farms and everything. And it's like not even a conversation because it's a desert and nothing lives there. And stuff lives there. But we don't have the data in a lot of cases to show that. And so by getting people out there and documenting what they see, those sorts of decisions around development will have to pass through this more rigorous data baseline for breeding birds. And breeding birds are so important because they're the best bioindicators of an overall ecosystem, right? For a breeding bird to be successful, it needs, in a short amount of time, food, shelter, water, nesting cover, all these various things. And the second you take that away, it's gone. And they're easy to observe relative to some insects, right? And so they're extremely valuable, not just for the birds, but because everything is connected for the whole ecosystem. And so that will be an extremely powerful way to make those decisions. Yeah.
How do you funnel this into the powers of the Congress and the corporate interests that want to just bulldoze them?
Well, in the California, in the Constitution for the state, the department that has oversight into these matters is the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We are developing a lot of really strong partnerships within CDFW across multiple branches. They're one of our founding partners, and they want this data as well. There's a lot of folks there that are really excited about this, and looking at the other states that have it, they're like, we want this too. And so, once a data set becomes sort of agency endorsed, then it has a lot more power. Yeah. We're talking to everybody, yeah.
Wow. They have a lot of, they make great relations.
Yeah, I mean, at the federal agency level, we are talking to BLM, who owns a lot of Mojave, also national parks and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as well. Yeah. We love NestWatch. NestWatch data will definitely funnel into the Atlas. I should say also that eBird and the eBird platform that we've set up is the primary data collection and management platform, but it is not the only place that we will be collecting data. The data period is January 1st of this year to the end of 2030. We will be pulling in vetted data from iNaturalist, from agencies, from NGOs who do their own surveys, anywhere that we can. Those things might not immediately show up on the fancy eBird map every day, but in terms of our final outputs, all of that's going to be going in. No, you can. That's fine. Yeah, our models will see that and account for it. Yeah. At this point, no, but it could be in the future. Yeah.
Long-term future. At the end of this 9-year period, you're going to have the California breeding bird atlas. And then do you then start over to create volume 2 and then start over again to create volume 3? Or is it kind of a continuous running average time? So my question really is the data what's important, or is it the atlas itself?
Yeah, so the question, to restate it for those, is, after the 5 years of field work and 4 years of writing, what happens next? Do you do another one immediately? Do you wait? Like, is it continuous? And Historically, the idea for breeding bird atlases were you do it every 20 or 30 years. So New York has done 3 at a state level. They waited every 20 years. And then each time they're able to see how things have changed. In a more modern context, with a lot stronger statistical advanced computing power and a lot of very smart people, and the extremely urgent threats, we don't have time to wait that long. And so we will be able to immediately sort of use this as a baseline. This snapshot in time is what the landscape of California's breeding birds were between these 5 years. And as we go, if there's major fires or this and that, we can do kind of sort of, specific surveys and then compare those with the atlas results. Because the geospatial data that we're collecting is not just on a block level. It's much finer than that. It's the lat long of the actual checklist. And so it will be used as a baseline for the state, NGOs, tribal groups, like all sorts of people immediately. Yeah, great question though. Yeah.
About the breeding code, and it's on your website, so sorry if I couldn't look it up. But other people have the question, what do you do about precocial birds? Chicks just woke up, just hatched out, and off they go running. They're not in the nest any longer, but they're a tiny baby, and that feels like a almost nest with young, so they got up and they ran off within an hour of hatching.
Those and our definitions of the codes would be FL, recently fledged young. I know. There's no perfect way to do any of this. But NORAC, the North American Atlas Committee, has been wrestling with these questions for decades. And, when you have so many species that have different breeding habits, you have to make some sort of trade-offs. And you have to, recognize there's like the breeding behaviors, trying to put them all into these kind of human-defined categories. It's just impossible. So we do the best we can. And at the spirit of it, it's basically the same. And I will say, once you get to this confirmed level of codes, the difference between those confirmed codes is relatively minor compared to the difference between a probable code and a possible code. The difference between a possible code and a probable code is a big deal. The difference from a probable code to a confirmed code is a very big deal. And we encourage notes along with your thing for any confirmed codes. These specific codes within that are important, but less so than that jump. And so I think this can be really scary, and people can have like a reaction, which I understand. I'm like, oh, no way. It's too confusing. Agitated, territorial, how am I going to do it? And our emphasis is like, just do your best, write notes, and we can communicate with you. And there's a lot of stuff that's like species specific, obviously like wrens, woodpeckers, and in California's case, verdin, and also some corvids make dummy nests, so how to handle those. There's a lot of these like in the weeds questions, but as long as you're into that general category, that it's a confirmed code, which means confirmed breeding attempt. Yes?
If the bird does not breed here, but it is singing, like it's maybe like a kinglet or a townsend warbler, do you want the code or no? Because I've just been making a note, not doing the breeding code.
Yeah, so great question. So the question was, for birds that don't breed here, should you put the behaviors in there, even though you know they don't breed here. And this is actually one of the biggest changes that has happened in the world of atlasing. Modern atlases, especially through eBird, have changed the answer to that question. Most atlases before established what they called safe dates, and volunteers would have information about these dates that they would learn and locations, and that's at a state level with thousands of volunteers. That's a lot to ask of people. Also, it makes assumptions, and so we have no safe dates, and we encourage atlasers to report whatever you observe. So in LA County, in my backyard, white-crowned sparrows do not breed. They do sing, and I mark it as singing. And because we're paying into this eBird system, we are able to, on the back end, change that. We know that, and so we can change that from a breeding code to a behavioral code. And so it retains the data. Maybe there's some interesting questions there. Do they start singing more, towards the end of winter? Not sure, but we know it's not related to breeding necessarily in this strict sense. And so we have ways to change that on the back end. And so just to make it simpler, easier for people, if you observe a behavior, mark it, and then we have tools on the back end to clean it up. Yep. Oh yeah, the question, great question. If you're not, if you're out birding and you don't observe much breeding behavior, but you're still seeing birds, should you still report those? Yes. We actually paid more to Cornell to ask a second question for each checklist, which is, if you're familiar with eBird, you're familiar with the question, is this the full list of species you observed during your list, yes or no? Now we ask a second question, is this a full list of all the breeding codes that you observed above H&S? Don't worry about H&S. Because if you observed, let's say, a mourning dove, and it didn't have any breeding evidence, it wasn't singing, it wasn't in a pair, didn't have a nest, it wasn't building a nest, that negative data is just as important as positive data. Because the more data that we have that something is not happening, strengthens the power of when it is happening. And so the more data that we have of people saying, yes, I included all the breeding behaviors I saw, there weren't any though, and that's extremely valuable and really strengthens the back-end analyses. Whereas, if you were just including the ones with breeding, then we don't know what wasn't breeding there. And so that's, yeah, hopefully that answers the question. But any follow-up? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's fair. So the two questions before an atlas, every eBird list is like, are you putting did you mark all the birds you observed on this list? Or are you like willfully not putting on some because you don't want to put them on for some reason? Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's fine. It's only, the question only asks, did you include all the ones you saw that you were able to identify? So not like, did you totally nail everything? More like, to the best of your ability, did you mark everything that you were able to identify? And then the breeding question is essentially the same. Did you include all the breeding behavior that you were able to identify? Then you still say, yeah, you still say, yes, I did. I just didn't see any. Yeah. Yeah.
Very beginner question.
Yeah.
You have birds in effect, you keep seeing them
Yeah.
every day. So what do you do in a case like that? So if they change behavior, you add another entry, or what do you do?
Yeah, so on eBird, you just start a new checklist for each day. If you have a nest in your backyard, every day you could create a checklist and submit that checklist for the same bird, and that's great.
But you would have a way to say that it's the same cycle. So
Yes.
okay, so you can kind of
Yeah. Our analysis on the back end using this like fancy coding system is able to know that. Yeah. One more.
More of a question on the philosophy of when you do the bird atlas list and not. So I'm really a hiker who birds. So normally I would go out and listen for birds, but if I'm not stopping to look for and ask the breeding behavior, then I don't check the CPA. If I do see something, I stop the list, start a new list, and stand there and watch, and then see what I'm doing, and then close that list when I just go off and hike and not paying attention. Is that the
Oh my God, nailed it.
Oh.
That was exactly what you should do. Well, the question was like, should you, if you're hiking, you're not really paying attention to birding, breeding, but then you see a nest, and then yes. In general, as a rule, short lists are always better. Stationary lists are always better. Personal locations are always better than hotspots. But hotspots are fine as long as you stay within a block. But that type of what you just described, you nail it. Perfect. One more.
That is, so you're hiking and you don't have a running list going, but you see something really unusual. You see a couple of birds in a suitable habitat. It's like, oh, I've never seen these birds here. This is so cool. You enter it as incidental.
You could, or you could just like stand there and do a 3-minute stationary. Yeah. That would be best. Yeah.
That's it. For these entries, do they have the orbits?
Yes.
Oh, they do. So you
Yes.
don't have to worry about
Nope.
that.
Yep. All right. I know you said one more. I'll stick around after the.
I was thinking, because I was asked for my Sacramento Berkeley buddies that joined this particular. I started thinking, and one of the reasons to come here was listen to your presentation because I really appreciated the first one. But birders, kind of the way that we would operate it, I would look and see what's kind of hot in the area, and I go, hey, there's a bird over here, and that'd be my next birding spot. So we kind of get areas that we kind of localize. How do the regional coordinators help us kind of redistribute a bit, or are we going to end up having a whole lot of like what that one picture showed, where we really bird?
Mm-hmm.
Big area in Monterey and Sacramento and something like that, you're gonna have a lot of good sports. And then other areas like El Dorado County, Amador County,
Yeah. So the question's about covering areas and how that'll change. So statewide atlases are proven to redistribute volunteer effort. And the way they do that is you go on the effort map, which is on the website, which is updated daily. And you can see if there's a block that has 0 minutes, that's where you want to go. And so people love, including myself, filling in blocks. It's so satisfying. They change color. And so basically you want to go to spots that are no coverage or very little coverage, especially in the first year. And then in years 2 through 5 will be a bit more surgical about where we divert effort. But in general, yeah, you just go to the effort map, see where there's a lack of coverage, and go to those areas ideally.
One of the things for hikers, I'm one of those students, but you're gonna find yourself walking out of areas. So if you started a count, you need to pay attention to the color difference. So there will be a kind of an amber color for being in your grid.
Yep.
And you can walk out of it, even if people tell you you're in the edge of.
Yeah.
And then you have to stop.
Yep, and start a new list. Yeah. Yep. And there's a really great app called Birdathon that just this atlaser just made and is awesome. And that you can access all the offline, like maps offline with no cell service. You can see a relationship within a block. And it has like all the breeding codes and examples without any, so it's only for iPhone right now, sadly, but Birdathon is a good resource too.
Thank you so much. We'll make a couple little plugs real quick before I let you all get up. The first is if you have more questions, which I'm sure there are, and I know there was at least one more online, feel free to hang out and socialize with us. We've got Van here. We also have Kai Russell and we have Karen Krieger here who are regional coordinators. They can all help answer questions. If you have questions that you want to email to Van at his info email address that he had on the screen, you can do that. Or you can email Monterey Bird Atlas at gmail.com and Karen or Kai or Paul will get back to you locally as well. Kai is our field trip coordinator for Monterey Audubon Society, and he has some ideas for, I'm going to call it block busting. Getting to those blocks that don't have things and helping us to create some field trips in those areas over the next several months. I guess my last thing that I was going to say is that we have all of our swag and stuff in the back. There's the sign up sheet for our newsletter for Monterey Audubon Society. There's also a sign up for Van's newsletter for the California Bird Atlas. And I can take cash or card or check for any of the swag back there. Thank you all so much for coming. And we'll see you around. We'll see you in the middle.
Block busting that's a thing. Like other states do that. Yeah.
Just looking at the map of even Monterey County.
Yeah.
That area that's blank, private property.
Yeah.
What do you do about that?
Yeah. So we have a team that's just